versus Dart.
Okay, so it is the rogue for Gaara as we expected, and it looks like this could actually be a very interesting rogue build from Gaara because we see the Goblin Auto Barber in hand, and that's not a card we've seen in the standard kind of oil rogue decks.
Yeah, it's like it's a card that pushes a bit of damage, and it's an important 2-drop. But on the other hand, from Dart, we see that very important Kongmaster, and obviously he is playing a different, showing it with a Hearthstone Jones and Water Elemental. So originally Rogue is a good Mage, but then this build is different. So maybe we should actually evaluate the matchup right now with the Water Elementals, Hearthstone Jones, and Blingtron.
That's true, and I guess the kind of tactics that Rogue is trying to employ at this point in the decks in the current meta with the weapons, the huge swings, the blade flurries. If they can't get the extra swing in with that weapon, that can make a huge difference. So this freezing, once again, we said it in the match against the Shaman, but the freezing could make even more of a difference in this matchup here.
Still, even with the freezes, a good decision from Gaara to take that Rogue to counter the Mage. With Druid, it will be very tough, and here he at least has a chance, having very aggressive deck. It seems like, other than the Barber, the deck is more or less standard. I think he's also playing one deckhand, which is sometimes it's in, sometimes it's out of the decks of the other pros.
Well, at turn 2 there, which is a little unfortunate, drawing into the Mech Warper a little bit late, but it does get the Water Elemental out on turn 4. But again, this hand isn't actually looking the greatest for Dart right now. He's got two completely reactive cards with the Hearthstone Jones and the Black Knight, the Fireball that's being saved, but if not for a big threat. Other than that Mech Warper, if he picks up something like a Mech Yeti off the top of his deck, this turn could absolutely change in how it looks, but there's also not a huge amount going for Gaara at this point.
Yeah, for Gaara needs to decide like what to do. It's like you either clear or you go for the tempo play and try to maybe sap the Water Elemental.
He's actually going to coin at the Azure Drake and just try to develop his board a bit more.
Well, the thing is that if he goes for that, for Azure Drake, and attacks face, he is kind of forcing Mage to start trading his minions. Oh, he's going for the sap. That's very smart. Like, with this is turn 4, and he already has a 3-2 on board and a 4-4. And a Water Elemental play is very slow. It's reactive. And right now also it will be much easier to deal with the Water Elemental if he gets replayed. So Dart is picking up a mech, but still, as you said, like his hand is really reactive. And if Gaara maintains tempo, if there is nothing to come back from this for Dart, then he's just going to lose in a couple of turns.
Yeah, we do see the Spider Tank coming to hand in a second Water Elemental, so Dart is getting those kind of mid-rangey minions that he needs to really contest this board. But it's still a fairly balanced matchup at this point. Neither seems to be drawing the cards that they absolutely need to take a huge tempo advantage. Something like a Blade Flurry, for example, which has just come into hand for Gaara there.
Yeah, Blade Flurry for the Rogue feels like cheating, because you both clear the board and deal damage. Also having Azure Drake is pretty huge. Like every time I see an Azure Drake on the opposing side playing against Rogue, I feel like, oh my god, it's like so much damage is going to hit me.
It never feels that good. And using the Deadly Poison you can see here on the Water Elemental, but that is going to freeze his face, and that's potentially going to present Dart with an opportunity next turn. Look at
Dart is getting nice cards here. With Pyro the Shredder, he won't be able to play everything, but he is able to develop at least the Mech Warper and the Shredder. Oh, with Fireball.
Yeah, he's going to go ahead and clear the Azure Drake and get the spell power off the board. I guess that spell power can be really, you know, if Gaara was to have a backstab in hand, he'd get insane value on that Mech Warper, so pretty sensible.
So Gaara is going to top deck Lotheb and play Lotheb, which is possibly stopping any spells or spell parts being played, but Dart has this Hearthstone Jones to kill the weapon and draw a card, which is pretty good against the Rogue.
Yeah, it always feels good to get some cards, particularly the Snow Chugger there as well. That's going to be another important card in this matchup. As I said, those freezing minions could make all the difference in the crucial turns.
This Harrison Jones was so huge, just dealing with the deadly poison. Right now, Gaara has the Blade Flurry, but he doesn't have anything to buff the weapon. Still, like, even creating a weapon costs mana, so he will be able to kill Jones with Eviscerate, but he needs to play something first, and then his hand is really bad. Like, what do you do? Do you cast, like, if you cast Sprint, you get too low, and so you possibly want to develop a minion like SA7 and then Eviscerate the 5/4, maybe trade with. Like, at this point, Gaara has to decide if he still wants to trade or if he's going to face. At some point in those matchups, like tempo matchups, you need to decide who is the aggressor and who is the defensive player.
Yeah, it does seem like that Spider Tank is a pretty defensive move at this point, but it can pay dividends in the end. We'll see if it helps him keep the board a bit clearer, but lots of options in hand for Dart to build this board back up. In fact, he could play out the Shredder and the Snow Chugger and still have mana to spare this turn.
Yeah, Gaara is not contesting the board that much, and Dart will be able to kind of like win the board and push with them. Because he's not pushing with damage, but still, he's like sprint.
Job's done.
We're gonna, yeah, the Mech Warrior is gonna trade into the Lotheb here, and as you say, the sprint is pretty much Gaara's only option here. He has two of them in hand, doesn't have a prep. It definitely doesn't feel particularly good, especially against a deck like this, though Backstab means he is going to be able to clear something.
Oh, anti-Q-Bot, that's actually a huge card in this matchup. Because maybe a Q-Bot is giving Gaara a chance to maybe possibly clear the board with Flurry and Oil, and then heal back to get the game back in his hand, because it's important that Dart is running out of cards. He only has this Black Knight that will probably never be used as a card in this matchup. Will be played as a 4/5 body, but there are no taunts in Gaara's deck. And the Fireball, it is important, but if Gaara heals back, he will be out of reach for Dart.
Yeah, he's getting pretty close here. If Dart were to top deck a Fireball or possibly even a Frostbolt, well, he does get a little bit of power off the board, so there's 10 damage on board, so Dart would need to top deck a Fireball here that he doesn't have because he already used it to clear the Azure Drake. So Gaara feels a little bit safe here, and the anti-heal bot probably will come down next turn to get him out of range. But the Frostbolt, that's exactly why he does need to heal next turn, because it's going to be a huge amount of damage coming in from the hand. Do you think we just see the Black Knight here?
Yeah, we're probably going to see the Black Knight, where your opponent is frozen, and you know that what he can... Like, you've seen one Deadly Poison already. You know that Tinker Oil is giving +3, so you want to have Black Knight on board. On the other hand, it's interesting that Gaara decided not to backstab the Raptor, and he just wanted to have a Flurry on the board and backstab something else.
He's not going to heal, and that's actually going to be his undoing here. He also a Blade Flurry to clear the board instead of healing. Can't fault him for that play, but that's actually going to give over this game to Dart, because he has the spells in hand to finish this off. And that's going to be actually kind of an upset, and possibly could be the game that really swings this matchup in favor of Dart.
Exceptionally played by both players, and Gaara's decision to go for board gear and keep himself on 10 was definitely correct. You know, mostly you just expect a Fireball and a ping, so 7 damage coming. You have to make a gamble. Even if he would just heal and not clear the board, I don't think he had enough mana to survive, where even with a Fireball. Like, this play was definitely correct, because